Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Greenstein with SoFlo Real Estate Investors. I'm here today with Ashely. We're super happy to have her on today. Today's topic will actually be large multifamily operations. Um, if you missed this episode, you can go onto our website at SoFloREI.com and you can click on the picture that says large multifamily operations, and you can see it and replay it. But yeah, so if you have any questions or anything, or you can always contact us as well. But further ado, Ashely, everyone.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can just go dig into your background and how you got to where you are today, that'd be wonderful.
So I have been investing in real estate for a little over 10 years. My husband and I stumbled on real estate because both of us were doing very well at a very early age, and we needed to invest our money somewhere where we thought it was a safe investment, and we weren't strong believers of the stock market. So we circled back, kept circling back to real estate, and eventually that's what we started pursuing part-time in addition to our jobs. So we continued along that journey. I've done everything from short-term rentals like Airbnb style, long-term rentals, house hacking, flipping, large multifamily, notes, precious metals. I've really kind of done a little bit of everything. But I would say that my primary focus has been historically single family flipping and large multifamily properties. So that's really how I've gotten to the place that I'm at today. I
Yeah.
find that no matter the asset class that you're in, it really carries over into different asset classes. There's a lot of knowledge that you can transfer that's transferable. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Awesome, awesome. And I know that that Ashely, you pretty much invest in PA, Ohio, and Texas, right?
So the single family business, we do high end flipping in what's called the main line of Pennsylvania. So that's in the Philadelphia suburbs. We do six figure rehabs, full gut rehabs, and we focus primarily on higher priced homes. That's just in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania is not a landlord friendly state. It's a tenant friendly state. So we chose to invest in multifamily outside of Pennsylvania, which is why we selected the areas that we did. So we have a few properties in Texas. We have a property in Ohio, and in about 3 weeks or so, we'll be purchasing another property in Texas.
Wow. So, what state would you say that what state would you go back and basically invest in again? I know that you said PA is more tenant friendly, Ohio, Texas, but what state to you is like most valuable, or where you get your most value for your money?
I really like Texas. I don't know the single family pricing in that market, so I can't speak to single family. On the multifamily side, I am very familiar with the the Texas market in general, but I'm really hot right now on Houston. So I enjoy that market, but I have a property outside of Houston as well. So I just like Texas in general. If you look at all the reports on migration patterns, U-Haul issues a report every year on where people are migrating to. There's a lot of different reports that you can look at, and people are moving south. So Texas is no exception to that. People really like Austin. Obviously, Elon Musk does as well. But there are a lot of reasons in which people are moving south. And Texas not only fits with the migration, but also fits in terms of being able to conduct business in a just in an easy fashion.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I too also love Texas, and the cities that you've mentioned, Austin and Houston, are definitely hot. Absolutely. So yeah, thank you for that for the introduction. I'm gonna go ahead and dig into the three questions that I have today. Um, what was your first investment property, and was it a stud or a dud?
My first investment property was definitely a stud.
Hmm.
I think that's what hooked me, you know,
Okay.
because we made a lot of money on that property. So the first property was a property, we bought it in the town that my husband's job was in. And his job was very seasonal. So during this season, we would house hack it. So we'd have other people live with us, and we'd have our mortgage and expenses paid for. And even more than that, we would cash flow off of what they were paying us. And then in the off season, we would rent it out as a short-term rental. And we did exceptionally well. So the first season, I didn't really know what I was doing. We made 20 grand over 3 months. Then the second year, 30, the third year, 40. And then we actually converted it to a long-term rental because we moved out of the area. But that property did exceptionally well. It wasn't a good investment if you just look at it from a appreciation in terms of what we purchased it for and then what we sold it for years later. What it was a really good investment was not only on the short-term rental, I think more so on the short-term rental side, because on the long-term rental side, it wasn't as it was just a solid investment on a long-term rental, but the short-term rental really made it what you want to do with real estate is you want to take the highest and best use of the land. And in that particular situation, in that market, the highest and best use for that particular property was doing a short-term rental. So for us to benefit off of that, obviously that's what made it a stud.
Perfect. Yeah, no, definitely. House hacking is I love that. Love house hacking. That's exactly what I'm definitely going to get into very, very shortly. Perfect. I'm going to go into the second question. Obviously you have a range of large properties, and I'm sure managing it can be difficult, right? So, what kind of software do you use to manage these, and also is it like virtual assistants? Do you use any of that as well?
So, in terms of the software I use, there's a lot of different software companies out there and programs out there. In all honesty, I could probably speak on a ton of different platforms, and they all have benefits in their own right. There is no one-stop shop for asset management, property management. So on the property management side, our property management company uses Yardi. Another property management company that we work with uses Resman. Yardi is the number one property management platform. Resman is a close second, but Yardi is the most infamous across the board in multifamily. Yardi is a very, in my personal opinion, it's a very archaic platform, but it does a really good job. It takes a lot of time to kind of learn the process and how it works. And in addition to that, Yardi is a homegrown platform for every different property management company. So if you work with one property management company versus another property management company, they have different systems. So it takes a little bit of time getting used to it. Other software systems we used are tied to different platforms that we use. So that kind of all coincides with what we're using. But in all honesty, I've created a lot of my own trackers and programs to capture data through just Google Sheets.
Mhm.
I know that sounds very juvenile, but in my opinion, it is something that really helps me organize my thoughts, have a one central repository in which I can collate data and see where the property is and how it's performing. And it's able to be duplicated because I'm able to just duplicate the sheet very easily. It has no overhead cost except for my time. So to me, that's a platform in which I've used pretty regularly. And it's a platform, speaking on taking something from single family and converting it to multifamily, that is something that I've done, is kind of taken my single family CRM type of system and then migrating it over on the multifamily side. So there are platforms out there that you can use that do one off here and one off there, but ultimately you need so many different platforms that it becomes very difficult to manage all these platforms because there's no single platform that encompasses everything. Maybe someone in tech will create something like that, hopefully soon. But in the interim, I just find it easier to use homegrown things that I've made.
No, absolutely. Google Sheets, when you said that, I was extremely happy because that's all I use. It's literally all I use. I use that in business. I've used it in my past jobs and careers as well. And yeah, I've made a whole entire inventory spreadsheet literally for all my consumables that I have. And I mean, it's like you said, it's so easy. There's no overhead, and you can create it and tune it to how you want it to interact, obviously, with the formulas. Um,
Yep.
yeah, I do agree with you on the Google Sheets. It's awesome. Um, that all of that was amazing. We're moving to the third question. Um, if a young real estate investor wanted to invest in a multifamily property, what would they need in order to obtain this kind of property? Is there like a formula that you follow, or again, like someone that just got into the game and like wants to get into like a duplex or quadplex or anything that's that level?
The fastest way to get into real estate in general, whether you're talking single family, multifamily, buying notes, doesn't matter, is partnering. That's the fastest way. If you partner with someone who already has the experience and you can either provide sweat equity, you don't necessarily have to provide real estate experience. So if someone's already experienced, let's say, for example, you're an amazing marketer, you're really good on Instagram, you're really good with graphics, you can do a trade-off. So you partner with someone and say, hey, show me the ropes on the real estate side and I want, equity in on this deal, but I'll like brand you, I'll do all your social media and I'll take care of that. And there's a trade-off. And then that's really easy to get into multifamily that way. In all honesty, that's the fastest way you're going to do it. And it doesn't even have to be that. It could be accounting. It could be construction. You could actually know something about real estate and partner and say, I'll manage the construction or I'll analyze the deals. If you're really good at analyzing the deals, you have to know what your niche is. And once you know your niche, you leverage that to another party that has that as a deficit. If you want to do it on your own, which most people start off on their own and they realize they can only go so far on their own. But if you're talking about duplexes and quads and triplexes and all that kind of stuff, you can do all of that on your own. You don't need to necessarily partner. So what I would say is, in terms of, first, you really need to educate yourself on the numbers. You need to educate yourself on what you're going after so you can be so specific, because once you know exactly what you're looking for, it's amazing how that actually appears. So if you're looking for a duplex that cash flows 200 a door in a specific market, and you want the property from 1990s construction onwards, you got to really limit your scope in a certain school district. There's all these different factors you're looking for. That really tells, first of all, anyone that you're looking to acquire. So if you're talking to a broker, you're talking to friends, you're talking to other real estate investors, that shows someone, first of all, that you're really serious, because you've gone to such a granular level that you know exactly what fits the mold. Furthermore, it tells someone when they get something that fits even 90% of your check boxes or 70%, it doesn't matter, that they're going to shoot it over to you because you're a serious buyer. When you just tell someone you're looking for a duplex, triplex, or quad, so is everyone and their mother. That really doesn't help anyone find you that deal, because they don't know what you're looking for. They could send you something that's negative cash flowing. So to me, really knowing and educating yourself is the first step, and then taking action, because you have the other end of the pendulum, which is there's analysis paralysis. And you can analyze deals all day, but if you're not going to take action, you're never going to acquire a property. I don't know if that directly answered your question, but
No, yeah, no. That was perfect. I believe, yeah, partnering with someone definitely elevates yourself, to another level. Um, especially if it's larger, commercial, etc. That's definitely the way to do it. I was listening to Grant Cardone, and he basically said that he's like you're not going to get anywhere unless you partner with someone, basically.
mhm.
Just extreme, you know, yeah, like the limitations and yeah, what you have, like it just pushes you forward, and you can just basically you can just keep going. So I agree with that. Um, Great. I actually have a bonus question. That was the three questions. I do have a bonus question for you. Um, what do you think will happen in the multifamily properties, like within the next 6 months? So, like from now until 6 months, what do you think will happen to these kind of properties?
Are you talking large multifamily, small multifamily, or just in general?
Just in general.
In general, I think that there are a lot of properties that are in the, let's, I don't know the starting number, but let's use 10 unit to 75 unit space
Okay.
that are going to become available. I think a majority of those properties are owned by mom and pops, and I think that they are typically, um, I'm not trying to just categorize a whole group of properties, but by and large, they're owned by people who have owned them for generations. So they might be older owners, and they were looking to get out anyway. And COVID was the icing on the cake, because if you have a vacancy on a 10 unit property, that's a 10% vacancy right off the top. And that's not even talking about economic vacancy. So if you look at that class property, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for people who want to buy in that range, and they could, hand pick within specific markets a bunch of properties so they could build up their portfolio very quickly, use economies of scales across multiple properties within the same geographical region. So that's the opportunity there that someone could exploit. um, I think in the larger multifamily space, you're going to see a dichotomy between properties that are coming off of forbearance, which came to a conclusion at the end of July. Anyone who opted for forbearance at the beginning, at the first round. And it all depends on how their mortgage servicer structured the forbearance. So if the forbearance had to be paid back until they could do distributions, and it had to be paid back within a year, I think that some of those properties are still going to be in trouble, because obviously COVID's impacts have greater lasting impacts, or greater lasting effects than maybe what was initially thought. And ultimately, when someone was going in forbearance, it's because they didn't have enough reserves in the first place. So I don't think much has changed on this scale of being able to have more reserves, unless you also obtain the PPP program as well, and you could offset your payroll for whatever 8 to 10 weeks you were able to stretch that out for. So ultimately, I think that the one side is going to be properties that are larger properties that are going to be coming up for foreclosure. And there's a saying that banks are not in the business for owning properties. That is no different on multifamily. In fact, it's even more grave of a situation if banks all of a sudden start getting multifamily properties. On the other side, I think there are going to be a lot of properties that still perform very well. And I think that the lending industry is going to get more creative to encourage people to purchase properties, because at the end of the day, they have a certain amount of loans that they need to get out the door. And Q2 didn't allow them to meet their milestones that they had set for Q2. So they have to play catch up. And Q3 is not shaking out to probably what they had hoped for. So now they're going to rely on Q4 to really recover from Q2 and Q3. And I don't know if that's feasible. So lenders get a lot of their capital on the origination fees and other fees that they have systematically programmed based on the number of loans that they're servicing and the terms of those loans. Well, if you decrease the number of loans that are being serviced, or that buyers are using, ultimately you decrease the number, you decrease their equity. And at the end of the day, banks are very reliant on that, and coupling that with properties coming to them through the foreclosure process, I think it's going to put a lot of strain on the banks. And I think if government policy dictates that there is an eviction a moratorium, then I think we're going to be in a really troubling position with some of these properties.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, yeah, all that makes sense, and hopefully within 6 months, everyone can kind of get back to normal, and COVID hopefully kind of decreases. But yeah, I mean that definitely answers the question there. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go into the open up table, or the table for discussions. Um, so if anyone in the roundtable session would like to go ahead and ask Ashley some questions, feel free to do so.
Well, let me jump in. So it doesn't look like it's a whole lot of us. So this is good in one aspect. So I get some one-on-one time with Ashley. So Ashley, certainly appreciate you joining and spending the time. So I do have not a whole host of questions, but I do have some questions. So Eric, I'll throw out a few, and then I'll back off and let somebody else answer.
Okay.
And then I'll jump back in there. So I put in chat, Ashley. I guess I didn't catch it at the onset, and I may have came in a little bit late. But what is home base for you is one, and then it sounds like you're doing some remote investing.
So I live in the suburbs of Philadelphia.
Okay.
And when I started my flipping business, I lived in Europe and Russia. So I started that entire business for about 4 years. I ran that business all from Europe and Russia. Then I moved back to the States.
So hold on one second, Ashley. So you're saying when you started investing in real estate, you were offshore and you were investing here in the States?
When I started investing in real estate a little over 10 years ago, I was living in the States, and I was investing in single rental properties, like one here, one there, rental properties.
Gotcha.
Then I moved overseas, and I lived there for 4 years. And while I was over there, I started a flipping business with my father back here.
Okay.
So I started the flipping business that we have today here while living in Europe and Russia.
Okay.
And then I came back here and I started our multifamily business.
Gotcha.
So I came back here about 3 years ago, and then we launched our multifamily business.
And that multifamily business, are you managing properties for other owners, or is that strictly your investment properties?
So originally I partnered with other general partners. So I was a general partner too. I'm still a general partner on these properties. I partnered with other general partners, and I ran asset and construction management. My father's a general contractor, so I have a lot of experience with construction, and even before getting into real estate investing.
Okay.
And then originally I thought that that would be a good idea to partner with other people, because they would find the properties and it would be easy for me to just come in and operate the plan. But I quickly realized that people's underwriting was way too aggressive for my comfort level.
Right.
And I have built a reputation of delivering what I say I'm going to deliver. So I did not want to be associated with things that I know that I can't achieve. And I'm decided very quickly that it also too wasn't scalable to partner with all these different organizations. And it would make more sense for me to go out and find the properties on my own and lead the deals on my own. So the property that we're purchasing in a few weeks is the first deal that I am leading on my own. Now I have a whole team and it's a team project. I'm not saying that it's just me, but I found the deal. My husband underwrote the deal. We're leading every single aspect. In addition, I will run asset and construction management on the deal, but there's always a lead on a deal, and I'm the lead on this deal.
Gotcha. And so the topic of this session, Eric, is large scale. So actually, what scale are we talking about? What's in your inventory right now, or what's the one that you're looking to close on? What's the scale of that property?
The one I'm closing on in a couple of weeks is 150 units.
Okay.
I have another 124 units in the same market, and I have another 225 units in Texas. I passively invested in another 101 units in Ohio, but I'm not actively managing that one.
Gotcha. All right, Eric, I'm going to back off for a minute, see if anyone else wants to ask any questions.
Okay.
I'll ask a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, Ashley. Thanks so much for sharing your story. I'm just, two questions. A little curious about, can you elaborate more on like what your team looks like how many people are on your team and I guess different roles? And then I was also curious, like what's like an average, like a typical work day for you? Like what do you do daily on a day-to-day basis?
Okay. I think you'll find the second question more entertaining, but I'll answer the first one. So the first question, so I have an underwriter, which is my husband. He does all the underwriting from a theoretical point of view, and then I come in and look at it from an operational point of view because I know what I can actually achieve. And I know, specific numbers, et cetera. And we also work with our property management company too. So there's a 3-level review, actually a 4-level, because I also have a financial consultant on our team as well. And he looks at it from a lending point of view. He's also our broker on the lending side, but he's also a partner with us too. We also have another partner who is way more experienced than us, and we use him as a guide for his experience. He has over 7,000 units. And he has been in real estate for over 25 years and in multifamily for over 10. So he is someone that, is just an incredible resource for us to tap into. We have 2 other partners that work very heavily on the due diligence side. They help us get to close. They help us with all of our needs prior to acquisition. They help us go down to the property and walk the units and do all of that as well. I already mentioned the financial consultant. And then we have a few people who help us with managing investor relations, and they also are all experienced on their own right. So they also provide guidance when we go to operate the property. So they sit on an asset management advisory board and provide their insight as well, because the one thing you learn very quickly in multifamily is that there are so many different ways in which you can achieve results in multifamily, and the person who has exposure to the most options are typically the people who are going to come out in the long run, being able to really put a plan to action and have that plan work. So we have a very, very experienced, strong team. I can't think of the numbers right now, but just off the top of my head, I know collectively that we have probably close to 700 or 800 million in terms of experience in acquisitions, and been involved in acquisitions totaling over 700 or 800 million. So in terms of, it might even be more than that. It might be over $1 billion in all honesty, because I literally just stopped tracking it once we got to 500 million. So there's just a lot of different experience you can gain from working with people. I think people, when they first start out in real estate, they're very hesitant to partner with people. And I've had bad partnerships, so I get it. And I also, too, know how intimidating it can be when you first start and you don't know what you don't know. And you also, too, are not confident that someone who is way more experienced than you will want to partner with you. But if you're willing to put sweat equity in, even if you're willing to do it for a year for free and kind of earn your stripes, so to speak, it can go a really long way. And looking back on my career, if I had partnered sooner, I'd be further than I am today. And I've never met anyone who doesn't say the same thing. So, one thing is hearing me saying it, and another thing is taking action off of what I'm saying by partnering with people. The second question you asked on what a typical day looks like, every day is completely different in my world. My husband is more into having some sort of schedule and structure, and I am not. So this life kind of fits me very well because I'm kind of all over the place. So for example, today I got up and I thought it was supposed to rain all day, and I ride horses and I have a horse show this weekend that I have to prepare for. And I got up this morning and it wasn't raining. So I said to my husband, okay, I think I'm going to go ride right now because it's not raining. And he's like, okay. So then I went and rode this morning, and then I came back, took a few meetings, did some work. And lately, because of the apartment that we're purchasing, I typically work until 1 a.m. and I get up around 5 or 6 in the morning. So that's what today looks like. Tomorrow will probably look totally different. I could be, going to see, we have a flipping business. So I could be going to the properties and checking on the properties and seeing how they're doing. Sometimes I'm flying down to Texas to check on those properties. Sometimes I'm taking meetings with investors. Sometimes I'm taking meetings with lenders. It's all over the map. I guess the point is to constantly move the needle forward. And as long as you're doing that and making progress, then, it really just depends on your goals. It depends on your why. It depends on the life you want to live. Some people want to set up passive income and then they don't want to work. I enjoy working. So I like to be able to create my own schedule and balance it as I see fit from day to day.
Awesome. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Ricardo, anyone else?
I'll jump in and I have like two questions for you, Ashley. First, I appreciate it for joining us today. So I guess one of my goals is always to fall forward when I'm doing this. And you mentioned partnerships, and I'm starting to realize right now I'm kind of in the boat by myself, trying to acquire my first flip. I know you've done many of them. So I guess one of the questions I want to ask is in regards to partnerships. Like, what are you looking for when you are partnering with somebody? What are some characteristics and some things that you kind of would like to see in a person when you're making a partnership?
So the first thing that I look for is my ability to get along with the person. I came from corporate, and in corporate, I felt like I was two different people. I felt like I was one person from 9 to 5, and then after work, I was another person. So much so that the people I worked with, I wouldn't share, social media accounts with. And, I wouldn't go to the bar with them and grab a drink. I wouldn't do anything like that. I don't like living that double life. I felt like I was living a double life. I felt like I wasn't true to myself. And I felt guarded any single time, like I almost was like, oh, I hope I never run into people from work while I'm out like drinking with my friends, not like I'm like a huge rager or anything, but like at the same time, like that would have made me very uncomfortable. And in this atmosphere, I want to be able to be myself. So if I feel that I can't get along with someone and I, have some sort of, I don't know, everyone has an internal barometer as to like when they meet someone, whether or not they're, that person is someone that they could get along with, or that person is a transactional relationship where you're just doing business or doing something like that. When I work with someone, especially today, all I care about is my ability to really be on the same page with them and get along with them. And, like if we want to like go chill and do something fun, we're going to go do that. And then, but we know how to turn on work too. So I'm like a work hard, party hard type person. Like I like balance in my life of being able to, not have a 9 to 5. I don't want someone to feel like they have to work 9 to 5, and I don't want them to put expectations on me that I have to work 9 to 5. But at the end of the day, like I want to be able to trust someone that I know they're going to get their job done, and they trust me that I'm going to get my job done too. So that's number one. Number two is that there's this thing where it's called the 3 C's. So it's character, capacity, and commitment. And when you look at someone, you're looking at the character, which is kind of what I just talked about. You're looking at their capacity. Do they have the ability to fulfill what they say they're going to do? Because they could be a cool person, the perfect person to partner with, but maybe they're a yes person. So they take on more than they can handle. And then last is commitment. Are they going to say what they want to do, say what they're going to do, and actually deliver? So those 3 things are really important to me. It's also important to me. So those are like, I think the tip of the iceberg, or the foundation, the opposite. So they're the foundation. That's what I look for first. But then there are other things like, for example, if I feel that there's overlap on a team member we already have, and we aren't at the point of expansion, then that to me isn't a good fit. I need someone who's going to be a all-star in the thing that I'm terrible at. I know I'm pretty in tune to myself, and I think everyone should be. They should learn like what they're great at, what they're good at, and what they're terrible at. And partnering with people where you're terrible at something and they're an expert at is amazing. Like that's when really incredible things happen. So to me, finding people that, you're like, for example, I'm not really good at technology at all. Like I hate it. It gives me a lot of anxiety. It's very stressful for me. I would probably do like so much more with, all these live things. I get asked to do all this stuff, but in all honesty, it makes me very, like, I have a lot of anxiety when I feel like it's not a Zoom call, or I have to do something, like I have to create a video for something. I just hate it. Like I literally hate it. So if someone came to me and they were like, hey, I want to partner with you, I want to learn, what you're doing, and I'm going to do all your videography for you. Like I'm going to come once a month. I'm going to shoot all this footage. I'm going to edit it. I'm going to send it out. Like you never have to worry about it. And we got along great and we were good partners. I'd be like, done. Like, let's partner together. Let's do it. Because that's my weak spot. Like that is a weak spot that I definitely have. So I think if you are looking to do your first flip, you have to say to yourself, like, do I like spreadsheets? Do I like tracking accounting? Do I like managing people? Do I like design? Do I like networking with brokers? Can I handle hearing no all the time? And when you figure out your strength, then you say, what were all the things I hated and I didn't want to do? And then you find that person who's like, I love all that stuff. And then you'll be able to really go further faster.
Well, I really appreciate that, especially in regards to the part where you say, coming from corporate America, I'm currently there, and so I could kind of really relate to what you're saying. I appreciate that. Just one more question in regards to, since you have a huge construction background and stuff like that. In regards to general contractors, I guess I'll ask this question: like, what are you looking for when in regards to hiring a general contractor? Like, is there anything that you look for when hiring a general contractor to do the work?
So I think a lot of people, and this is going to be sidetracked for a second, but I'm going to get back to your question. I think a lot of people, when they hear my story, they're very quick to pass judgment on me. So when they hear, oh, you know, she started with money, so it's so much easier for her. And oh, her dad was a general contractor, so it's so much easier for her. They're missing that the devil's in the details. First of all, on the capital side, you don't need capital to start. It actually probably was a disadvantage for me to have capital at the start because my capital runs out at some point. And I was so much further along in real estate and I had no idea how to source capital. Not at the beginning, like everyone else, not like everyone else, but you know, there's a large majority of people who get into real estate investing who have to figure out the capital. I figured that out a few years later. So I was like behind the 8 ball in terms of like, you know, trying to figure this out when everyone else around me already knew the secrets, you know, so it took me a long time to network and to figure out all these ways to find capital. So, and then on the construction side, I think a lot of people, they hear me say, oh, my dad was a general contractor, and they're like, oh, it's so easy to partner with your father and blah, blah, blah. But I think what they're missing is, when I said the devil's in the details, is my dad was a general contractor who had his own business for over 40 years, and he was the perfect partner. Why was he the perfect partner? For me personally, it's because he's my dad. Obviously, I know him really well. I can trust him, all the things that from your first question. But the reason he's the perfect partner from, you know, even if we weren't family members, is because he had the knowledge and experience, right? He had his own business, but he was older. He can't physically do the work anymore, but he has the brain. He knows how to do the work. So how do you tap into someone's brain where their dollar per hour, let's say his dollar per hour is $200 an hour, right? And yet the contractors are, you know, $15 an hour, $20 an hour, whatever. So you use the brain to manage all of these people. So what I always say is look for someone who's about to retire, or look for someone who wants to retire, but they can't retire. They need an out. You can tap into their brain. They're not physically doing the work, but they know how to do the work. They'll put you in an advantageous position, meaning they'll limit your liability for doing shoddy work. And they'll be your eyes and ears and everything of executing your plan. So that's why I think you never should discount someone when someone tells you that they had, you know, what you consider an advantage, because you have to kind of dive into it a little bit further, and then you can see how you can exploit the same thing. Like you can go out, anyone can go out and find someone who is about to retire as a general contractor and partner with them.
Well, that's really great advice. I really appreciate it, Ashley. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
No problem.
Guys, we have about a few minutes here. Ashley has to run like 8 o'clock sharp. Is that okay, Ashley? A few more minutes, or?
Yeah, maybe just one more question, because it's an investor call, so I need to be on a little bit before 8.
I got you. Anyone have one question?
Yeah, so let me jump in there with that, one question. Ashley, you touched on it a couple of different times. So I'd like you to elaborate on one thing, the commercial paper that's available right now. So Eric asked you a good question. What do you think is going to happen 6 months out? Right now, give me your experience with the paper that's available, and do you see that shifting? So, right now they want more leverage, they want more reserves. Where do you see that shifting, and where are your sources of funding coming from?
So are you specifically asking how the lending side is going to be shifting?
Correct.
Okay, so on the lending side, it already has shifted. So on the lending side, they're asking for more reserves. You can look actually historically back to the real estate recession of 2008, and you can mirror it in some regards, because they were asking for more reserves, but in other regards, it's a little bit different. We are going after a government-backed loan. We're going after a Freddie loan, and Freddie loans historically have these requirements, these hurdles of your net worth has to be equivalent to the size of the loan, and then you have to have liquidity of 10% of the loan. And they've actually scaled back on that. So our net worth requirement is only a third of the size of the loan. Liquidity, they've kept the same, which in all honesty, I think they should have done the reverse, but I understand why they kept the liquidity the same. On the reserve side, it depends on whether you're going for Fannie or Freddie. They have different requirements in terms of the holdbacks on the reserves. So there are differences in terms of whether it's 6 months, 9 months on the holdbacks between Fannie and Freddie, but they've already started shifting that. I think people need to remember that the number one partner you ever have on a large multifamily property is the bank. Most people think, oh, it's my $500,000 investor. No, it's the bank. The bank is your number one partner on the deal. So they're going to want to make sure that their investment is safeguarded. How is it safeguarded? Through reserves, through your net worth and liquidity, and your ability to operate based off of your experience. All of those things are essential for the lending industry. I think what they're trying to do is trying to entice someone to purchase more because they're thinking, oh, we can cut back on the net worth because you're signing non-recourse loans and this, that, and the other. And they think that's an incentive. In my personal opinion, I don't see how that's incentivizing anyone to purchase a property that they otherwise wouldn't have. So I don't really get that. I think that's smoke and mirrors in my opinion.
Gotcha.
So, but in terms of, there was a second question I forgot.
You answered it, but let me ask you real quick. So are you syndicating your deals when you say you have partners? Are you syndicating your deals and going after additional investors and doing a pool?
So this particular deal we were originally looking for JVs, but the timeline was just too short.
Right.
So we ended up, we actually over raised on this deal. We had an 8.3 million raise and we raised 10 million in 3.5 weeks. So in all honesty, we're not going to allow everyone to fund. We're going to have to scale back if everyone ends up funding. But my opinion on raising is you should always over raise because you're going to have a drop off. I felt comfortable at the 20% marker. So that's why I targeted was a 20% over raise.
And you're doing PPMs?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. All right.
Absolutely. And it's a 506c too. So in case anyone's wondering whether or not I'm pitching it's a 506c. So it's only open to accredited investors and it's already funded. So I don't want to get in trouble.
There you go. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, thanks a lot, Ashley. From my perspective, valuable information. Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Ashley, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I'm really inspired right now. And
Awesome.
actually motivated right now. So again, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences, and hopefully we'll see you sometime on the show.
Thank you again so much. I'm happy to join and happy to help anyone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ashley.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.